So my mother turned 80 last month, which is really fantastic and impressive. But what's even more impressive to me is that my dad died about a decade ago. And 2 years ago, my mom got remarried. Now, a lot of people think that love late in life isn't possible. They write it off. They say it's just not going to happen. It's too late. But I like my mother's story because for me, it shows that anything is possible. And that, in fact, when you get a little older, when you get a little more mature, what you're looking for in a partner changes. It's not so much about external beauty or physical appearances. My mother is a wonderful person, and what she has is a characteristic that the most astute and mature men value, which is training as a nurse. Now, the only problem with watching my mother's happiness is that now, if we stack it up, if we compare, my mother has been married 2 times, I have been married 0 times. So what's up with that? But I think I know the truth. I have a really busy schedule as a business author and speaker. I'm constantly spending all my time reading business books, reading self-help books, reading Tony Robbins. And I had a girlfriend a while ago, and it didn't work out because she kept inviting people to the house for barbecues, and I kept making them walk on the hot coals. So today we're talking about how to live entrepreneurially, which is something that I've been looking into and researching and studying for the last number of years. I started my own business, my own entrepreneurial venture 11 years ago. And one of the things that gets a lot of press, of course, is Google famously has their 20% time for their employees. But I think that too few of us in our own lives actually apply that same principle. What I have tried to do in my own life, one of the ways that I work to live entrepreneurially, is to carve out enough time to create side bets, to create things that I am doing in my life that don't necessarily have any direct application to the day job, the work that I do. I don't necessarily know where they're going to lead. I don't know what the ROI is, but I believe fundamentally that they are valuable. And so as you perhaps extrapolated, one of the things that I started doing last year was taking stand-up comedy classes. So thank you for sitting through some of my routine. It's, for me, something that I had always thought was cool, but had never made time for. But I decided that that was the moment that I wanted to learn about it. Some people ask, did I do it to improve my public speaking skills? Well, the answer is not really. I mean, yes, there is some transferability. You have to be comfortable on a stage, but the skills are pretty different. It's not a one-to-one correlation. It's just something interesting. But that's not the only side bet that I've placed. That's not the only thing that I'm doing in my 20% time. Let me tell you about my Grammy. Best pickup line ever. No. Earlier this year, I actually did get to go to the Grammys, and believe it or not, I have a producer credit on an album, a jazz album, that actually ended up winning 2 Grammys. And that was pretty amazing. Oh, thank you. No, the truth is I don't deserve it at all. but the way that I was able to finagle my way into this amazing situation is actually through networking, through making connections, through a lot of what you guys are going to be doing over the course of the next 2 days. Just meeting people and in your mind saying, that's a match. I need to bring these people together. It turns out I have a good friend who's a jazz composer, a big band leader, and I have another friend that I met entirely separately who is a business author, but also is a jazz musician and in fact wrote a book on the history of jazz. And the little networking alarm bell went off in my head, and I said, I've got to bring these people together. They've got to get to know each other. And so I did. And as a result of that, they ended up collaborating and creating an album together. It's a jazz opera that they're working on. It's actually in process right now. But essentially as a thank you, one of those friends who was involved in another project brought me in as a producer and said, I think this album could go places. Would you like to be involved? And so I said, why not? And joined in, and it actually led to Grammys. Now, there's actually one other thing. I don't even have a slide for this because it is so recent. I actually found out about this on Saturday. But my project for next year, I'm going to be starting this next fall, is that I've actually just been accepted into a musical theater fellowship program where I'm going to be, it's probably one of the most prestigious programs that they have, which is amazing. And I'm going to be learning over the course of the next 2 years how to write for the musical theater. And I am thrilled to be going into that world and learning about something new and completely different. This is not about my work. This is not about my business. I do not necessarily think that I'm going to be starting some huge entrepreneurial sideline related to serving musical theater artists. But it is something that you never know where it's going to lead, and you never know what the result is. And I think that one of the most important aspects for me of living entrepreneurially is understanding that when you tip over that first domino, you can't predict the consequences. All you can do is say to yourself, does this look interesting? Will this lead me to an interesting place? And if the answer is yes, then you make the time to do it. Now, of course, the trick is you can't spend your whole life just doing interesting free things. None of the activities that I talked to you about are things that are revenue generating for me. The way that I've found to create a holistic entrepreneurial lifestyle is that you do a lot of interesting things for free and don't worry about monetizing them. But on the other hand, the activities you do monetize, you want to monetize well. And that's why I actually wrote my most recent book that's just about, as we speak, to be released. It's about how to monetize your expertise, how to create multiple income streams. And in a lot of ways, I wrote it really so I could find some answers for myself. I had built up a great business for myself. I was doing well financially. But you look at some of the people out there, some exemplars, and you see that, the 7-figure incomes, and you say, well, what are they doing? What is that formula? And is there a way to understand it, to crack it, to reverse engineer it so that I can figure it out, and also so hopefully I can share it with other people? Because the truth is, we all know people these days. All of us know people who are talented, who are good at what they do, who have something important to share with the world, and yet they don't seem to be making any money. They haven't figured that part out. And that, in many ways, is the plight of the modern economy, because in the phrase that the internet theorist Doc Searles used with me, we've moved from making money from something to making money because of something. And it's a subtle distinction, but it's an important distinction. You used to be a journalist, like I was, and you would make money from being a journalist. They would pay you to write articles. Now, in many ways, I'm still a journalist. I still write articles all the time. I get no money for them, but I'm actually making far more money because of it. You have to find ways to monetize around what you do. That is the secret to really being able to succeed entrepreneurially these days and create multiple revenue streams. And so I wanted to share with you some of the principles of what I've learned about how to do that. So first, I get questions sometimes where people say, well, okay, creating multiple revenue streams, that's great, but doesn't that pull you in too many directions? Aren't you diluting things? Aren't you having to be trying to speak to too many audiences? And I think the important thing to understand here is, yes, if you're trying to make money being a gardening consultant and a dog walker and a lawyer and a hot air balloonist, you are not going to do probably that well, because those are different audiences. Those are different skill sets. They don't cohere. But if you instead can take one skill set and develop it and find ways that they can feed into each other, that is how you can really begin to gain momentum so that the snowball is building. I'll give you an example. In terms of my own life, I now have 7 income streams. 8, actually, if you count them slightly differently. But I am making money from where I first started out, being a consultant, being a marketing strategy consultant. I also now do executive coaching. I do business school teaching. I give paid speeches. I write books. I have online courses, and I have affiliate income. The new income stream that I've just recently started doing is live workshops and masterminds. So 8 different ways of making money. They all come together. If I'm giving a speech, a paid speech, for instance, that might actually lead to more consulting or coaching clients. If I am teaching a business school class, down the road, some of those people might decide they want more information and join an online course. If someone joins my email list, they might buy my book and they might buy an affiliate product. All of those things come together and become symbiotic. If we can begin to think that way about maximizing our effort so that they join together, that's one way that we can become even more systematically entrepreneurial. The other key, of course, is that sometimes people try to do too much. They try to add on too many things at once. Now, for me, when I started my business in 2006, I only did one thing. I did marketing strategy consulting. I do marketing plans for companies or organizations. And that was good for a while. But over time, maybe 1 or 2 things a year, I would just add on and make it my focus. In around 2010, 2011, I decided I am going to start teaching, business school teaching, and make an effort. And I put myself out there, I networked like a maniac, and I broke in to be able to do that. In 2013, I was able to publish my first book, Reinventing You, and so I started being able to make money from writing books. That same year, having written the books, it opened up a new opportunity for me to start getting paid to speak. So as long as we're systematically adding in new income streams without trying to do everything at once, we can be more successful. Now, another strategy which I've employed in the past 18 months or so is creating as you learn. And so in writing my new book, Entrepreneurial You, I actually had a strategy. I said, you know what, I really want to learn about new income streams, especially creating online courses. And so I built them in together. I did the interviews for the book in January and February of 2016, essentially so that I could get the chance to have coffee with some of the leading lights in the entrepreneurial world for free, learn their wisdom, and then over the course of the next year, apply it and put it into practice. I was able to launch my online course last year, it's called Recognized Expert, as a direct result of the techniques that I learned from interviewing them in depth. And I piloted it and tried it out. That actually was the core of my book, was writing about what I had learned from these experts and how I had applied it in my own business and what worked and what didn't work. I've now brought in, over the course of 2016, I earned nearly an additional $200,000 more than I did the year before, strictly from applying what I learned in the research process. You only have 24 hours in a day. You have to make it symbiotic and work together. And then finally, it's about going for momentum, looking at what is already working and expanding there. We might have hypotheses about where we want to grow our business or what we want to do, but you always have to stay close to the customer and understand what they're asking for. And so in running the first pilot iteration of my online course, what I kept hearing again and again was that people wanted to come together. They wanted to be physically present as well as having the online experience. And so that's how I started my newest income stream of creating live workshops and masterminds. It wasn't something that I had planned on doing, but by listening to customer demand and paying close attention, being an active part of that community, I was able to create something that people wanted, and therefore it was able to be successful from the get-go. We all live in a world today that is increasingly disrupted, increasingly unmoored. We have to find ways to create our own career arcs. And one of the best ways, I believe, to do that is to begin thinking more entrepreneurially, acting more entrepreneurially, and finding ways to create your own multiple income streams. Thank you very much.